Discover the incredible ways 1,000 medieval peasants overcame a life-changing famine year. In the small village of Elmwood, the air hung heavy with despair. Crops shriveled under the relentless sun, and livestock lay dead in puddles of their own suffering. Just 17, Clara could see the anguish etched into her neighbors' faces, mirroring the deep care she had for her family and friends. As the brutal famine gripped the land like an unforgiving hand, Clara couldn't sit idly by. Hope sparked in her chest, igniting a fierce determination to stand with her people. Every morning, she woke before dawn to check on her father's fields, praying for a miracle. Sweeping her fingers through the parched soil, Clara wished he could still work the land. Each day, she witnessed how hunger fractured families. Children, once full of laughter, now walked with sunken cheeks and brittle bones. The more she saw, the more her heart ached, a painful reminder that the wealthier landowners hoarded their resources while the village withered away. With a fire in her eyes, Clara gathered her friends, urging them to contribute even the smallest morsel of their dwindling supplies. "If we don't help each other, we may as well be ghosts in this field," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor of fear. With each meeting, the village began to share a little more, and slowly, hope started to ripple through the crowd, but whispers of betrayal invaded their small circle. Desperation twisted loyalty into suspicion, and families turned against one another as they counted their last grains of flour. The tension hung thick in the air. Clara felt the weight of her role as she stood before them, uncertain yet resolute. They needed a leader, but her heart screamed she couldn't sacrifice her family for the sake of strangers. Then, Clara stumbled upon a hidden cache of grain thought long lost. Beneath a rotting floorboard in her father's barn, it sparkled like a jewel amidst decay. The moment sent a jolt through her body. How many lives could this save? But her joy was clouded by an agonizing question: who truly deserved to share in this bounty? She faced the hardest choice of her young life. Clara knew that to some, her family came first. They had gone hungry together, shared laughter, and chased the seasons hand in hand. Yet, she couldn't ignore the weak and the wounded. She felt trapped between the fibers of loyalty and the call for justice. The village stood divided, families at odds, tensions bubbling over, and Clara could no longer shy away. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening," Clara said, her heart racing. "YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The room quieted, and Clara felt every pair of eyes upon her. She was no longer just a girl, she was the heartbeat of Elmwood. With a deep breath, she made a choice that would either shatter their world or bring them back together. "Let us share what we have," Clara declared, her voice rising. "Together, we can heal our village, or we will starve alone. We must restore faith to our community." As she carved a pathway through despair, Clara wondered, could her courage bring about a new dawn, one where neighbors looked past their differences? The echoes of her call hung in the air, signaling the first step toward unity in a fractured world. What happens next? The future of Elmwood perched delicately on Clara's shoulders, and the choice before her would ripple through countless lives forever. The sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky a fiery orange as Clara looked around at her friends and neighbors. In that charged silence, a collective breath hung in the air, her declaration echoing in their minds. Doubt flickered, but so did something else, a glimmer of hope. "Together," someone whispered, and it sparked a stir among the crowd. Clara's heart raced. Encouraged, she stepped closer. "Together, we can fight this. We can create a plan. Gather what little you can. Let us meet at the old oak tree tomorrow at dawn." The murmurs grew louder, and as Clara returned to her small home, she wrestled with uncertainty. What if this plan failed? What if her call brought only more despair? Night fell, and Clara lay in bed, listening to her mother's soft sobs from the other room. They had all been hungry for far too long, a weight that pressed upon them like the heavens had shifted on their fragile roof. In the morning, dawn broke with a crisp breeze as villagers slowly gathered beneath the ancient oak. Clara watched as they approached, each step heavy with doubt yet filled with courage. Old and young, families that once stood apart now gathered in a patchwork of need and resilience. Clara felt the warmth of their shared purpose ignite something deep within. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice steady this time. "I know we've been broken, but we have a choice. We can divide our crop, take turns sharing our meager finds, or we can rally together and find resources. The barn's grain can be a lifeline if we use it wisely." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, but Clara could also sense the tension. "But if we do this, we must do it fairly. No one family should take more than they need while others suffer." As she laid out her ideas, Clara noticed eyes glossing over with resolve. James, the baker's son, raised a hand. "What if we hold a festival? Gather supplies and fresh food for a feast to share. We can invite everyone there's joy in community." Clara's heart swelled. Yes. A festival of hope. A day to celebrate life, even in this darkness. Laughter spread through the gathering, and hope flickered brighter. They began brainstorming ideas, intertwined plans of sharing their recipes, remaking old traditions. Clara could see their unity growing. They mapped out a route for collecting grain and assigned tasks: who would hunt for mushrooms, who would take on foraging, and who would oversee the festival preparations. But behind every smile, Clara felt the shadows of doubt. What if the landowners heard about their organization? The fear gnawed at her, persistent and painful. "This is only the beginning," she reminded herself, "we can't lose faith now." As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows before them, Clara stood among them, an emblem of shared hope. They began to disperse, filled with purpose. But deep down, Clara knew the struggle was far from over. That night, she sat in the dim light of the fire, reflecting on all she had set into motion. The test of their unity was yet to come, and she couldn't shake the warning that echoed in her mind. The barn loomed just beyond the flickering light, a reminder of her secret still hidden beneath the rotting floorboard. The question persisted: would it become their salvation or a weapon against them? Time was slipping away, and as she glanced back at the group dispersing into the night, Clara understood she must confront the hidden bounty before it was too late. With her heart pounding, she whispered to the darkness, "What will I choose when the moment comes, and who will I decide to trust?" Clara awoke to the gentle light creeping through her window. A chill lingered in the air, but her heart surged with determination. Today was the day they would begin to change their fate. She quickly dressed and hurried downstairs, where the aroma of burnt toast floated from the kitchen. Her mother sat at the table, frustration evident in her hands as they clutched a scraggly piece of bread. "I'm sorry, Mama," Clara said softly, pouring a bit of water into a chipped bowl. "I'll find something, I promise." With hope as her guide, she slipped out of the house, the weight of her secret still heavy on her heart. At the old oak tree, the villagers gathered. Clara could see excitement buzzing in the air, shared smiles igniting sparks of resilience. Children laughed underfoot, their play a reminder of joy even in the darkest times. Clara stepped forward, feeling the energy of those around her, ready to take their first step together. "Today, we begin the festival of hope," she announced, her voice ringing clear. "We will find what we can and pool our resources. Together, we are stronger." Cheers erupted, and the crowd seemed invigorated. She could see their eyes twinkling with possibilities. As they split off into groups, Clara took a moment to collect her thoughts. Tasking herself with exploring the barn felt safe, but dangerous. She navigated her way toward the structure, hesitance pulling at her feet. Every step was weighed down by the potential ruin of her secret. Inside the barn, cobwebs swayed in the corners, and the smell of stale hay filled the air. She hesitated before the old floorboards, her heart racing. What if this treasure brought ruin instead of salvation? With trembling fingers, she pried a board loose, revealing grain stored away. The sight sent shockwaves of relief through her heart, but confusion quickly followed. Would it be right to use this grain? It was meant for a different purpose, a backup. The landowners would never allow it to be taken. The ensuing battle against her own conscience raged within her, doubts twisting in knots. She could save her community, but at what cost? Outside, she could hear the laughter of children and the chatter of neighbors as they filled bowls with wild fruits. The sound reminded her of the depth of shared dreams among the villagers. Yet here she was, inches away from decision. Clara felt the weight of the world press against her, the silence in the barn palpable. Clara. A voice called. It was James, back from foraging. Panic crept into her chest. What are you doing in here? I. The words caught in her throat. He stepped closer, gaze softening when he spotted the opened floorboard. Is that grain? She exhaled softly, feeling a rush of vulnerability. I didn't know how much was in here. I was afraid, what if we can't use it? James regarded her, searching her face as if weighing the truth and consequence. We could feed everyone, he said carefully. But what would the landowners do if they found out? The stakes climbed higher in that moment. Clara stood at a crossroads, the decision pressing against her like a heavy stone. She felt the pull of the grain, a potential lifeline for her community, but the threat lingered just outside the barn. Maybe together we can figure it out, James suggested, his voice rising with fervor. Trust can be our strongest weapon. Clara nodded, the flicker of hope sparking between them. They moved to gather the grain, the weight of trust settling into their partnership. But as Clara filled her bag, her heart raced with fear. What would happen when the truth came out? Would they be heroes or outlaws? As they stepped back into the sunlight, the sheer potential of their actions weighed upon her. Each choice became a pivotal moment, and Clara understood that soon enough, they would have to face the consequences of their plan. As the festival loomed closer, Clara looked up at the horizon, shadows lengthening around her. The time for secrets was fading, and with a deep breath, she whispered, "What if they come for us before we even get to prove ourselves?" Clara blinked against the sunlight, the warmth contrasting with the icy grip of uncertainty in her heart. The village bustling before her seemed oblivious to the war waging inside her. They laughed, they shared stories, and yet, all she could think about were the consequences of their actions. What if they come for us? She whispered again, this time louder, the words falling heavy into the air. James glanced at her, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. One step at a time, Clara. The festival is about hope, right? Yes, but hope can't fill empty bellies if we don't act. The irony twisted inside her. How could something meant to celebrate solidarity also feel like the sharpest betrayal? They drifted through the village, gathering together the mismatched offerings from their neighbors' berries, roots pulled from the earth, and the tiny bits of grain left over from last summer. Clara spotted Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman with kind eyes, struggling to carry a basket. "Let me help you, Mrs. Thompson," Clara offered, taking half the weight. "Oh, dear Clara. You are such a dear." Mrs. Thompson smiled, deep lines creasing her sun-kissed face. "It's so wonderful of you to lead the festival. There's so little to celebrate these days, and yet you bring light where there's darkness." "Thank you, but it's all of us together," Clara replied, a lump forming in her throat. As they continued combing through the village, Clara's resolve started to waver. What if the grain really was their only hope? What if it was meant for tomorrow's food? Today's pickings should not be sacrificed. The worries chewed at her like a dog gnawing on a bone. When they reached the center of the village, the excitement was electric. Families gathered, children dancing in circles, their carefree laughter ringing clear. Clara couldn't help but smile at the sheer joy surrounding her, but guilt clawed at her heart. Everyone looked to her, their leader and beacon of hope. But what if she led them down a dark path? "Clara!" called a voice filled with urgency. It was Tom, a wiry boy with messy hair and bright eyes. "Is it time yet?" Can we start? She took a deep breath. Would they, despite the risks, dare to unite behind her, even if they were feeding on borrowed time? Yes. It's time. Let us share what we have, she proclaimed, and a wave of cheer swept over the crowd, but deeper down, as she clapped her hands together, a shadow flickered, a question she couldn't shake. Will they see her as brave for taking this chance, or foolish for possibly dooming them all? Clara turned to James, who stood nearby, his own worry evident. The landowners, she began, but he shook his head. Let us focus on today. We're making a difference now. Before she could argue, he joined the throng, engaging the villagers. Clara watched, her heart both heavy and light. This could either lift her people or shove them under. She felt frozen, rooted in place, wavering between hope and fear. Then a sudden shout pierced the air. Look! A group of unfamiliar faces stood at the edge of the village, their eyes scanning the gathering. Clara's heart stopped. They had come. The landowners were watching. Everyone, stay calm. She urged, her voice rising above the crowd. Panic rippled through the festival. Are they here for us? A voice whispered fearfully. What were we thinking? Another murmured, the weight of doubt crashing in like a storm. Clara's pulse quickened. This was the moment. Would the villagers rally, or would the fear drive them apart? More than the grain, they needed unity, and she felt every soul's eyes on her, waiting for guidance. As she stepped forward, the sun hidden behind the approaching storm clouds, Clara realized that this was not just about survival, it was about their very identity. Stand together. She shouted, words bursting forth like fire. This festival is ours. We have fought too hard to back down now. But as she faced the strangers, the question buzzed through her mind like angry bees: would they support her fight, or would they turn their backs when it mattered the most? Clara's heart pounded in her chest like a war drum. She scanned the faces of the villagers, fear mixed with determination flickered in their eyes. The landowners, stern and rigid, stood directly ahead, their expressions a blend of curiosity and authority. This was a showdown, and everything she'd worked for hung in the balance. Who are they? Tom whispered, clenching his fists. The innocence in his voice cut deeper than any sword. They're the people who decide our fate, Clara replied, her voice steady despite the storm swirling within her. Do we run? He asked, looking towards the throng of villagers, a mixture of faces that had once laughed together now frozen in trepidation. No, Clara said firmly, shaking her head. We don't run. Just then, James stepped up beside her, an unwavering presence. He met Clara's gaze with a reassuring nod. We stand our ground. We've shared what we have. We are united. A ripple of agreement spread through the crowd, the air thickening with renewed courage. Clara felt the weight of their collective spirit. It breathed life into her voice. Together, we are stronger. We have been pushed down long enough. The festival is a symbol of our resilience. Enough of this nonsense. Shouted one of the landowners, a tall man with a gray beard that seemed to hold years of contempt. You dare challenge the order? You forget your place. The villagers gasped, the tension falling heavy like a leaden blanket. Clara felt her throat constricting, but she stood taller, refusing to bend. And we will continue to challenge it until we are heard. A murmur of support arose among them, a swell of voices rising like a tide. Yes. Shouted Mrs. Thompson, her voice steady with conviction. We will not be silenced. Please, Clara said, her heart racing, listen to us. This festival is about more than food. It's about community, survival, and hope. We deserve to stand together and protect one another. The gray-bearded man raised an eyebrow, as if struck by her passion. Hope. And what will that hope buy you? We control what comes to your village. Why not change the way of it? James interjected, stepping forward. Why not let us work together? A family, he gestured around at the gathered villagers, should not be at odds. We can help you provide for the village, we just need a chance. Clara's heart soared as she watched the villagers rally around James's words. A wave of voices rose in agreement, mingled hope filling the air, pushing back the clouds of despair. But the landowner's glare only hardened. This will not stand, he replied, his voice low and filled with malice. You think you can challenge our authority? I will not allow it. Fear snaked through Clara's gut. She squeezed her fists tightly, trying to mask her uncertainty. What will you do? She challenged, trying to muster everything inside her. Will you crush the very ones who look up to you? Will you declare war on your own people? A pregnant silence followed, every eye watching for his reaction. The villagers held their breath, united like a fragile chain ready to snap under pressure. For a heartbeat, anger flashed in the landowner's eyes, but then, his expression shifted, a hint of something different, perhaps fear, or doubt. It was fleeting, but it sent a tremor through Clara's heart. Maybe, just maybe, she had touched something real. Leave, he finally barked, breaking the spell. While you still can. Clara felt a surge, a mix of defiance and dread. No. We're not leaving. Not now. But as the landowners turned, retreating to the edge of the village, Clara's mind raced. Had they really witnessed a shift? Or were they simply biding their time? Clara! Tom shouted, eyes wide. Did we just maybe, she said, her breath shaky. But the fight is far from over. As the villagers erupted in a cautious cheer, Clara knew they had crossed a threshold. But her joy was laced with the harsh reality of their journey ahead. They had challenged authority, but what would the repercussions be? And how far would they need to go to truly secure their freedom? A question hung in the air like a cloud, heavy with uncertainty. What sacrifices would they have to face to protect their newfound hope? Clara stood at the front, breathing in the collective essence of the village, the tension, the hope, and a newfound determination. The distant voices of the landowners faded, but their threat lingered like a storm cloud overhead. She glanced around at the faces of the villagers, whose eyes sparkled with a mixture of fear and grit. They had dared to speak up, but now what? Tom's voice broke her thoughts. Do you think they'll really leave us alone? Clara shook her head, knowing the answer was buried deep somewhere in her heart. I doubt it. They've had power for so long, I just hope we're ready for what's next. James moved closer, his presence as calming as ever. If they come back, we'll be ready. We've stood together once. That counts for something. The villagers grew animated, their whispers and laughter slowly softening the heavy tension as they rallied around Clara and James. They began to share stories of resilience, filled with tales of past challenges and victories. Clara smiled as she heard Mrs. Thompson recount how they banded together during last year's drought to save what little crops they had left. As the stories began to weave a tapestry of unity, Clara felt her heart swell. Maybe they could navigate this storm just as they had in previous trials. But in the back of her mind, doubt lurked. Would it be enough? Suddenly, a shout broke through the crowd. Look! A young boy pointed toward the horizon, where dark clouds roiled ominously, not just overhead but churned within them all, an uncertain omen. Clara narrowed her eyes, her stomach tightening. This wasn't just about food or authority. It was about survival, about surviving this fierce battle, not just for themselves but for the children who played in the dirt streets and the elders leaning on their walking sticks for support. We can't wait for them to come back, she said, her voice rising above the whispers. We need to prepare our village. We need to strengthen our bonds. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, but Clara could see the apprehension shadowing their faces. What if we started cultivating the fields together? Share the work, share the harvest. If we come together in greater numbers, they can't intimidate us. James stepped up, his resolve unyielding. Let us create committees. Everyone can contribute their strengths, whether it's farming, gathering, or planning. We can make it work. This can be our moment. Clara watched as the villagers nodded, energy rippling through them. She saw hope igniting like the first rays of dawn cracking through the veil of night. Yet, deep inside, a gnawing worry tugged at Clara's heart. The landowners would not let this stand. They would return, and when they did, it could spell disaster. How could they prepare for a threat that loomed so large? As they began to organize gathering materials and outlining responsibilities, the ground beneath Clara felt shaky, almost as if it anticipated the storm. Overwhelmed with determination, Clara put her hands on her hips. We can do this, but we'll need to protect each other. Our strength lies in our unity. And if we do this together, we can weather any storm. The villagers rallied, but Clara couldn't shake the feeling that they were teetering on the edge of a precipice, staring into the unknown. In the midst of their newfound energy, a shadow loomed in the distance, a figure mounted on a horse approaching the village with purpose. Clara's heart dropped, a chill racing down her spine. Was it one of the landowners returning? As she feared, the villagers fell silent, tension rising once again as they turned to the approaching figure, uncertainty etched across their faces. What would he want? Was this a friend, or had the time for reckoning officially begun? The figure drew closer, and Clara's heart raced with each hoofbeat echoing on the dirt road. She leaned forward, straining to catch a glimpse. The sun caught the glint of metal, the shimmer of a badge, and her gut twisted. It was Thomas, a local envoy. Faster than the thoughts racing through her mind, the tension began to dissolve in whispers. Is he bringing news? Someone murmured. As he dismounted, Clara could see his face. It was pale, and his brow glistened with sweat. Whatever he carried, it was heavy with the weight of urgency. The villagers shifted uneasily, their earlier excitement replaced with a biting anxiety. Clara, Thomas called out, his voice hoarse. I need to speak to you, now. Clara stepped forward, leading Thomas away from the crowd. She could feel their stares boring into her back. What has happened? Is it the landowners? Thomas looked around, ensuring no one was within earshot. They're gathering their forces, and they're not coming empty-handed. They're bringing in help, mercenaries. They want to take back what they believe is theirs. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Mercenaries? For us? The word felt heavy, like a storm cloud. What do you mean? Are we in danger? Thomas nodded gravely. If they think we're a threat, they may attack to make an example of us. The peace we have fought for is hanging by a thread, Clara. You need to prepare everyone. Fight back if necessary. Panic fluttered in her chest. She returned to the villagers, her heart pounding in her ears. Listen up. She shouted, commanding attention. Thomas has news. They are coming again, and this time, they bring more than words. We need to take action now. A murmur rippled through the crowd, and Clara saw mothers clutching their children closer. She felt the collective fear tightening around them like a noose. We can't let them intimidate us. We must be ready to protect what is ours. James stepped up beside her, his face set and resolved. I say we fortify our defenses. Grab whatever we can, from pitchforks to tools. We make a stand. The villagers began to nod, fire igniting in their eyes again. Clara felt the resolve reigniting, a tiny flicker amidst the darkness. She looked at Thomas and then back at the crowd, urging everyone to gather their strength. We will not back down. Together, we can defend our homes. But as chaos began to spread with shouts of readiness and plans to arm themselves, an unsettling thought lingered in Clara's mind. What if the very act of preparing for a fight drew the landowners even closer? She felt torn, caught between the fear of losing everything and the desire to fight back. An elderly woman stepped forward, her voice stern yet shaky. If this is the fight we must face, then let us never forget why we do it. This land is our home, our livelihood. Fight not only for yourselves, but for those who cannot. The crowd fell quiet, absorbing her words. Clara felt powerful energy pouring into her, both gratitude and the raw desire to protect. She glanced back toward the horizon where the last rays of sunlight were slipping away into darkness. As night fell, the village's resolve felt more tangible than ever. Clara looked at her neighbors, her friends, the ones she would fight for. Would it be enough to stave off the looming threat? In the distance, a chilling wind picked up, whispering through the trees. Clara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her choices. The time had come. Would they stand together or lose everything? While the villagers began to gather their belongings, a distant rumble echoed from the horizon. The landowners were not far behind. The final reckoning was about to begin. Would they be ready when the time came to fight? The answer hung in the air, electric and heavy with anticipation. Clara stood amidst her neighbors, the shadows of the encroaching night gathering around them like a thick fog. The distant rumble was haunting, a reminder of the storm to come. She could feel her heart racing, an echo of the fear and determination swirling in the air. Each villager's face reflected the same emotions: hope, apprehension, and the fragile spark of courage. "We need to act quickly," she urged, her voice firm but steady. "Every minute counts. We can't let them catch us off guard." Thomas stepped closer, his expression etched with worry. "Clara, we should consider a long-term strategy. It's not just about fortifying our homes. We must find a way to unite the nearby villages. They may feel the pressure too." Nodding, Clara felt her resolve deepening. "You're right. We can't fight this battle alone." She turned to the crowd. "James, gather a few trusted people. Send runners to the next villages. Let them know what's coming." James moved with purpose, his determination infectious. The villagers, now buzzing with a new purpose, started to scatter, some heading for their homes, others to find weapons, and a few to reach out to neighboring settlements. The air crackled with urgency. Clara watched as mothers hurried with their children, men clutched their tools and makeshift weapons, and the elderly quietly exchanged knowing glances. They were not just preparing for a fight, they were banding together for survival. But in the depths of her heart, Clara now grappled with another layer of complexity: the potential for violence. Would they truly be willing to take up arms against their own? The landowners weren't just faceless enemies, they were once part of a community that had shared laughter, meals, and bonds. She felt the weight of her own conviction against the ethical dilemma looming over her. Night enveloped the village, and Clara found herself on the edge, overlooking the fields that had once flourished with golden wheat. Memories flooded her, children playing, families celebrating harvests, and old stories shared under a vast sky. Would all of this be lost in the fires of conflict? The wind gusted around her, and she shivered, not from the cold, but from the fear of what lay ahead. There was strength in their unity, but also a haunting uncertainty. Would the villagers turn against themselves in the chaos? Would anger tear apart what they held dear? A soft voice broke through her reverie. Clara turned to see the elderly woman again, her face illuminated by the moonlight. "Fear is powerful, Clara. But so is hope. Don't lose sight of that." Clara clasped the woman's frail hands, a wave of gratitude washing over her. "I understand, but preparing for battle feels like stepping over a line. It could change everything." As her voice faded, the distant rumble echoed again, a herald of impending conflict. The villagers' resourcefulness glimmered like the stars above them, yet doubts danced like shadows in Clara's mind. She needed to decide to fight or to seek a path of understanding. The quiet determination of the villagers fueled her spirit, but she couldn't shake the unease. The clock was ticking. Would they have the audacity not only to defend but to seek peace? A sudden thought struck like lightning amid her doubts. What if they could confront the landowners, offer them a chance to negotiate instead of fight? But would that be seen as weakness? The thought weighed heavily, twisting around her heart. "Time," she whispered into the cold air, "is running out." Clara straightened, bracing herself for the looming dawn. The choice ahead was monumental. Would they meet the landowners with grit, or with open hearts seeking resolution? As she summoned her newfound resolve, a flicker of hope ignited within her, like a match struck in the dark. The dawn would come, and with it, the answer to her questions. Could they face their fate united, or would division write the end of their story? With uncertainty still hanging heavily, Clara took a deep breath, ready to confront whatever awaited her and the villagers. Whatever came next, one thing was clear: they would need a courageous heart ready to fight for peace. Clara's thoughts raced as she descended towards the village square, every step heavy with the knowledge of the decision she had to make. The faint glow of lanterns flickered like stars against the gathering darkness, illuminating the faces of her neighbors. There was a resolve among them, each heart interwoven with threads of fear and hope. As she stepped into the square, Thomas and James were already gathering the others. Clara could see the tension in their shoulders and the determination in their eyes. "Listen," James called out. "We're going to need everyone's voice tonight. We have one opportunity to unite and plan." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, each villager with their own opinion, their own fears. Clara felt the weight of their gazes on her. It was a responsibility that made her stomach churn. Just moments before, she was grappling with doubt, now she had to embody the strength they needed. "Friends," Clara's voice rang clear, slicing through the murmurs. "We must ask ourselves, what do we stand for? Are we willing to rise up in defense of our homes? Or can we explore the possibility of dialogue? Let us not rush blindly into conflict." A young man stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "But Clara, they've already taken so much. How can we trust them to negotiate?" "Trust is hard," she replied softly, "but so is anger. If we meet them with blades instead of words, what will happen to the community we cherish?" Clara could see a flicker of doubt in some faces, but others nodded, contemplating her words. "We still need a plan to protect our own," Thomas interjected. "Even if we choose the path of dialogue, we can't expose ourselves to danger. Right now, we need to prepare as if an attack is inevitable." The crowd fell silent, reflecting on his words. They needed structure, a strategy that balanced their fear with their hope, their desire for peace with the necessity of protection. A grandmother stepped forward, her hands trembling but steady. "When my husband was alive, he taught me to approach every crisis with an open heart. I believe our past connections with the landowners can guide us." "That's profound," Clara said, her spirits lifting. "If they remember our shared history, perhaps we can evoke the humanity within them. Let us show them we are more than just farmers, we are families." Suddenly, a commotion near the edge of the square drew everyone's attention. A group of villagers returned, panting and out of breath. "We found them," one of them shouted. "The other villages are gathering. They want to help." Cheers erupted. Clara felt her heart swell with hope. The realization that they were not alone spread through the crowd like a wave, reinforcing the fragile bonds of community. Just then, Clara caught sight of a familiar face: Sarah, the woman who often shared stories by the fireside. Sarah, who had always advocated for peace, stepped forward. "Clara, if we're going to hold talks, we should devise a way to show our strength without raising weapons. We can make signs of goodwill, offerings of food. Something that reminds our neighbors of who we are." "That's brilliant," Clara exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over. "Let us create a welcoming committee, but we'll also prepare defenses just in case. We can show we're united and ready for peace, but we won't be defenseless." They quickly organized themselves, assigning roles: cooks to prepare food offerings, messengers to maintain contact, and others to fortify their homes. Each villager dedicated themselves to the task, working as if the very essence of their community depended on it. As the night faded, a sense of purpose took hold. Clara looked around at the faces of her neighbors, hope lighting their eyes, determination firming their chins. She felt a connection, a shared heartbeat that thumped loud and clear through the darkness, and yet, in the back of her mind, Clara felt that looming storm still breathing down her neck, heavy with uncertainty. What if their attempts at peace only aggravated the landowners? Would they be ready for whatever consequences awaited? The sun began to peek over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold. Clara inhaled deeply, allowing the crisp morning air to fill her lungs. It was a new day, a day filled with possibility, but also a day heavy with the burden of what was to come. As they made their plans, a faint sound caught her ear, distant yet ominous, a rumble that seemed to echo the unsettled tension in her heart. Clara turned to the others, her voice steady yet laced with urgency. "We must prepare ourselves. No matter what happens next, remember why we chose this path together." Their eyes locked in mutual understanding, but uncertainty flickered like a candle flame. Would they find the strength to face the landowners without resorting to violence? Or would they be swallowed whole by the fear they were fighting against? With a heart pounding in her chest, Clara braced for the challenges ahead. The true test of their courage was only just beginning. Dawn broke over Elmwood, casting a soft, golden light over the determined faces of the villagers clustered in the square. Clara felt the air buzz with anticipation. Today was not just about survival but about reclaiming their dignity, their community. They had worked too hard to let fear dictate their fate. As Clara stood before them, her heart swelled. "Thank you all for gathering here today. What we do next will define us. We face uncertainty ahead, but we do not face it alone. We are a family." A chant echoed through the crowd, a growing wave of voices chanting, "Together. Together." It was a solidarity she hadn't known her people possessed, a bond too strong to break. James stepped forward. "We must approach the landowners with both resolve and wisdom. If we show that we can protect what is ours, and that we wish to work together, perhaps they'll listen." The elder woman Clara had spoken to earlier raised her hand. "Let us prepare a table. A symbolic gesture of peace, with food and offerings. Show them what we can do when we unite." The villagers nodded, energy coursing through them as they bustlingly set to work. Within moments, arms were gathering baskets, fruits, and grain, crafting a banquet that reflected their harvest. Clara felt pride. They weren't just giving in, they were taking a stand with generosity, yet unease still gnawed at her. Could this truly be enough to bridge the vast chasm that had formed between them? She knew mercy, kindness, and hope would be critical, but the specter of confrontation loomed large. The landowners were unyielding and accustomed to power. As the crowd prepared, Clara glanced back toward the horizon, where dark clouds still gathered. She closed her eyes against a wave of doubt. Would this peace offering be the weapon that would hurt them instead? Hours passed, and the villagers set up their humble banquet at the edge of town by the path leading into Elmwood. Clara felt her heart thud as they waited. Suddenly, the thunder of hooves broke the silence. Clara's breath caught in her throat. The moment of reckoning had arrived. As the landowners' force approached, she could see their figures outlined against the sun, tall, imposing, powerful. Clara stepped forward, her resolve rooting her in place. James and Thomas flanked her, the villagers behind them, each face etched with a combination of fear and courage. The landowners halted before them, their expressions stone-faced. The lead man, the gray-bearded one with hard eyes, stepped forward. Clara's heart raced as she met his gaze, steadier than she felt inside. "What is this?" he sneered, eyes scanning the gathered villagers and the spread of food before them. "Have you come to beg?" "No," Clara replied, her voice echoing with strength she didn't know she had. "We've gathered here to stand united to show you the wealth of our community, the strength of our bond. We want to build a future, not just for us but for you too. Let us not meet with blades. Let us meet with intention." A murmur rippled through the landowners, and Clara felt her heart race. "Intention?" The man scoffed, disbelief in his tone. "Yes." Clara pressed on. "If we join forces, if we work together, our village can flourish. You may hold power, but we hold hope, the kind that can't be extinguished quickly. A chance to work together instead of turning on one another." For a moment, the gray-bearded man's expression softened. "And what is to guarantee we can trust you, little girl? Trust is earned, not given." "Let this be the first step toward it," Clara replied, determination pouring from her. Just then, James stepped in. We can craft a plan to share resources fairly. But it starts with you hearing our voices, treating us as partners instead of pawns. The landowner's face hardened again, but Clara pressed on, emboldened. Let us bring all that we're capable of to the table together. Let us share our strengths to create more than we've lost. We are families, we are neighbors. A heavy silence fell, tension thick in the air. The villagers held their breath, awaiting the gray-bearded man's reaction. Then, something remarkable happened. The man's lips twitched, his eyes narrowing, not in anger but consideration. The crowd shifted, anticipation growing. If I agree to this, what else must I give? He looked at Clara, a flicker of respect shining through. What would it take to change the tide? Let us start by flipping fear into cooperation, Clara said, a sense of relief flooding through her. Let us hold each other accountable and work to uplift all our people. Together, we can do this. As Clara stood there, uncertainty faded, replaced with a flicker of light. What had been a village shattered by despair now shimmered with the promise of renewal. The landowner stared back, an unspoken decision stirring in his eyes. Slowly, the tension broke, as hands began to shake and accept each other. Clara felt the weight lift as she watched trust blossom where uncertainty had once ruled. Very well, the gray-bearded man said finally, extending his hand. Let us see where this leads. Cheers erupted, shouts of unity filling the air. Clara felt a tear slip down her cheek as joy swept through her. They had turned a corner. In that defining moment, amidst laughter and celebrations, Clara realized they had forged something more potent than the grains buried in her father's barn. They had rediscovered their collective strength, a legacy built on hope and unity. As the sun dipped low, casting warmth upon their shared territory, Clara reveled in this victory. And as she stood with her community families intertwined in laughter, members shaking hands and sharing food, Clara whispered, "Today, we have secured our future, together." And in that moment, she knew what truly mattered wasn't just surviving but living to allow hope to illuminate even the darkest corners. A bond crafted under adversity bloomed beautifully, proving that even in despair, resilience could reignite a flame worth fighting for. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the value of supporting the channel through these actions.